resolve and sure grittiness.
It starts with an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Five-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Alan, Raj. What's going on, boys? How are we feeling?
Dude, it's like the first day of school for the next month or so.
Yeah, hiatus is over. We've been, we do this every year. For those of you guys that might be new to the show, we always take a break during playoffs, kind of just, reset, little palate cleanser for the brain, for the content machine. And just watch some hockey, get back into the swing of things. So might be a little rusty going into it, the first episode back in a little bit here, but we're Five-Hole Fantasy Hockey. You guys can join the Fantasy Hockey Discord. Find us on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We're live on YouTube right now. You can join the chat. We do this usually at 9 o'clock, but whatever. Check out FHFhockey.com. We got some episodes coming up. The one that I want to bring the most attention to is our next episode, the Keeper League Mailbag, where we're going to take listener submissions. If you got a really kind of, how would you put it, tricky keeper situation, right? If you got a bunch of keepers that you're not sure how to whittle it down or stuff like that, those are you're the person we want to talk to. So chirp us here in the chat, throw us a DM or comment on something on YouTube or in the Discord, something like that. Let us know your situation. Give us league context when it comes to scoring, roster size, this, that. The more context you give, the more informed we can be when we hash it out on the show. That's going to be June 4th. We're going live with that one. So the next couple days, we need those submissions, and we'll be happy to talk about your guys' stuff on the show. We got the Dynasty series coming right behind that. And pretty soon after the Stanley Cup final, we're going to be doing the mock drafts, the offseason mock drafts with the ADP project, where we build an in-house ADP, see how things shift over the summer based on consumer sentiment, stuff like that. But that's my spiel. I'm done talking for a little bit. Raj, it's been a minute, man. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. Actually, just lied right off the bat. I woke up sick today, so my voice is a little froggy, but feeling good. I'm happy to be back looking at your faces.
Oh. Alan, how you been, bud?
All right, man. It's a crazy couple months and the journey that is mental health. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
So Bob is a fraud.
Yes, but go Panthers.
Is that so? I know you're a Lightning fan. Is that where the rivalry is coming from a little bit?
No, I just the first few years of that Bob contract, he was terrible.
Oh yeah.
But the team in front of him was garbage. So now it's well, Bobrovsky is so good. No, the team in front of him got better. I don't believe that he necessarily woke up and remembered how to be a goalie.
3 straight Stanley Cup Finals appearances for the Panthers. How would you feel being Jonathan
State of
Huberdeau?
Florida, man. State of Florida. 6 straight Cup appearances.
How, Huberdeau, Uyghur, watching this team go thrice back-to-back. It's, man, that's got to be something else. But, all right, here we are. We're going to talk about today, this plan for the episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the year in review, just kind of get back into the swing of things, look at the 2024-25 season as a whole, talk about some of the storylines. And then we're going to talk about our 10 lessons, something we do every year where we talk about what 2024-25 fantasy hockey season taught us and what we need to bring into next year. But there's so much in the way of storylines, I think, with this year. OV beats the goals record. Kucherov wins the scoring title. Brantanen gets traded twice. It was just such an eventful season. And I don't know if this is how it is every season or if recency bias is kind of just pulling me in closer to this season. But does this season feel more drama, reality TV than other seasons? What do you think, Raj? I see your face.
You're asking a Canucks fan if this was a dramatic season.
All right, Alan, what do you think about
Yeah.
this?
Oh God. Yeah. I did,
'Cause
especially
we
the
don't need to
Brandon
get on the
trade.
Canucks already.
Brandon trade. Like I
No.
never thought that dude was going to get split from McKinnon, and now it gets traded once, but not twice.
Oh man,
Not once, but twice. Yeah, insane.
but I mean, Raj,
And then signs with Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's a topic I think for the keeper league episode that we've got coming up next. But like, what Rantanen do we use to kind of project forward? Right? We can't use Colorado anymore. We can't use Carolina. He was trash there, and now we have him in Dallas. So it's just a really tricky situation to kind of like try to project him out. But Raj, going back to what you're saying before we got on a Canucks kind of. I mean, you're not wrong. Like if there was one team that had maybe the most drama, it was probably the Canucks. Like you guys, you got rid of your coach. He's with me in Philly now. The JT Miller, Elias Pettersson bullshit. Demko coming back. Quinn Hughes on a fucking heater. If there's any year for him to win the Norris, it's this year. But it just the season that Werenski had, it's kind of feels like a missed opportunity not to give it to Werenski. But anyway, like, where are you guys at in Vancouver? How are you holding up? Adam Foote, new head coach. What are you thinking?
Oh, dude, so many things.
Yeah.
No, Quinn Hughes was on the season of all seasons, and then he got hurt, so that kind of cut him out because Makar and Nowinski both, it was a season of incredible defensemen this year. It really was. So unfortunately, Quinn didn't actually deserve the Norris when it was all said and done. But the whole Pettersson Miller thing, you have 200-point players who literally just couldn't get along. And that's actually the story. Everybody's got all these different things, but like the guys just hate each other and have the whole time. And so one of them had to go. He went. It's a gong show. And then at the just to calm everything down at the season-ending press conference, Jim Rutherford comes out and is like, "I think Quinn Hughes wants to play with his brothers."
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, thanks, Jim. So it was a gong show out here. I have some lessons on our list. Basically, all 5 of them are don't draft Canucks anymore because they go
Except
from
for
100.
Kevin Lankinen, apparently.
He was great. But yeah, it was a crazy season all around. I mean, you got like guys like Mitch Marner on the way out. There was a rumor yesterday. Now Matthews is getting traded. Talkett's back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, it feels like a really like drama-filled season.
It's NBA. It was the NBA this year.
It does feel like it. Like huge superstar trades. Brad Marchand going to Florida. Now he's in the Stanley Cup. The 3rd Florida, 6th Florida as a state. Florida Panthers 3 in a row. A repeat Florida Edmonton. That starts up in 2 days, I think it is, right? So we're doing this
Wednesday.
on Monday, and that one's gonna happen. We're probably gonna be hopping on for this Keeper League show in the middle of that game. So early apologies if we're not all tuned the fuck in. But what are you guys thinking about this one? Like Stuart Skinner to me is the biggest variable because Edmonton is such a good team. Zach Hyman is not going to be there for the final, which is a huge blow, I think. But if Stuart Skinner can hold strong, this is going to be a series. If Stuart Skinner is Superintendent Skinner or whatever, all I think is Skinner. But if he's the bad Skinner, right? Like it's going to be Florida in 5, maybe Edmonton.
What they say it was he was either below 8.33 or above a 9.3, like no in between with him.
So wild. So
I was making the joke that he's going to win the Conn Smythe with like a 750 save percentage. Right? Like,
and he got ousted for fucking Calvin Pickard for a little bit there. So like you have a controversy in Edmonton, and then in the final game of the Dallas series, right? Like Ottinger gets pulled, and then you have Casey fucking DeSmith come in. Like he's going to be your savior. And Alan, we were talking before we went on air, like Pagnotta, he was talking about, for whatever you think about Pagnotta, but he was saying that, DeBoer might be on the hot seat a little bit.
Yeah, because what was it? Like I said, there was reports that some of the players didn't deal with some of the stuff he did in the locker room well for the Western Conference Finals and the exit media thing. And he's got 1 year left on his contract. So if there was a time they're going to pull the trigger, it was probably a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it seems like the Band-Aid is already getting kind of soggy on that one. I wanted to say...
like there's a crazy fact about Casey DeSmith, and as again an ex-Canuck who I hate, and previous to that he was voted quite often the worst goalie in the league by 5-hole over and over when he was in Pittsburgh. He has the best save percentage against rush chances in the league for 4 years in a row.
Casey
DeSmith.
All right, we're gonna
is
have
the
to
best rush chance
Zach's
goalie
IP address on this episode or something.
I was so shocked when I heard that, because if that's the case, then why is he so bad? But that was the only defense to that pulling the other day. Was you're playing against Edmonton.
Yeah, who's the rush?
Mathematically, it makes sense to have DeSmith in, but really, the way when Ottinger he started skating back to the goal, he didn't even get told in the timeout that he was pulled. And as he's skating back to the net, then he gets, get off here. Totally humiliated the guy. It was brutal.
Yeah. I wanted to say, Bobrovsky's only got 1 year left, right? Like that big deal is, I'm pretty sure is a UFA next summer. And next summer's UFA class is insane. So that's a bridge worth burning later, but it's almost time,
That contract is now only worth it because they've won a cup.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if they never even sniffed the finals on that contract?
My goodness. All right. OV breaks the goal record. We all kind of knew that was coming. Barkov gets his third Selke. Good for him. I think a lot of the guys that were in that conversation, Cirelli was up there,
Yeah.
Great defensive presence, a lot of deserving names at the top of the list there. How did the rest of the Raj, you're more plugged into the NHL media site version of the NHL. When do the rest of the awards come out? When do we find out? The Calder, I know Lane Hudson's probably the favorite for that one, but him and Celebrini neck and neck, I'd say. But I'm curious about the rest of the awards. Do you know?
I don't honestly know when they're releasing all the what the schedule is for that.
Got to find out who gets the Lady Bing.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I really don't know. I hate this. I hate that they don't just have an award show and announce all the awards at the award show, make it into an event. It's in between periods at fucking random days. So good. By the way, guy got a huge award. No big deal. It's garbage.
It's kind of a big deal. A little bit.
It's garbage. It was a big deal when they made a show out of it. Have a show on TV where they walk up and get an award and make it into a big deal. Not here's a tweet that says so-and-so just got an award. I don't know.
Didn't
I
they
hate
used
that.
to? Because I think that was right after the playoffs that didn't happen where Tampa and Columbus played each other and they were just razzing on Vazzy the whole time. And it was just, you could tell something was brewing.
Didn't like.
And your guy, man, Nikita Kucherov gets the Hart. That's one we don't need an awards announcement for. And it's not even by games played, because I guess the argument would be there that if McDavid had played a full season, he probably would have had it. At points per game, Kucherov had him beat, man. 121 points in 78 games played, 1.55 points per game to Connor McDavid's 1.49. Straight up tied with Leon Draisaitl in the playoffs here. McDavid is just about lapping the field, but Florida's got the numbers, I think, behind it. Sam Bennett's, I think it's Barkov actually who's leading the team, but then Bennett and then Kachuk. So they've got this three-headed monster, plus Bobrovsky's playing God mode right now, and you're going up against whatever version of Stuart Skinner shows up. So I don't know. It's going to be a really fun series. What have you guys liked about this playoffs? Has there been a favorite series of yours? I've never been too much a fan of any series that Carolina plays, so I've kind of been away from those ones, but a lot of really good series, especially in the West for me. Those have been the most exciting ones to watch.
Yeah, there's been a few. I mean, Edmonton, I'm not allowed to say this as a Vancouver guy, but the Edmonton, everything they do is friggin' exciting, man. They're like, you have a goalie who either gets a shutout or lets in 5 goals, like we just said.
Yeah.
You have the 2 best players in the league right now, like hands down, even though they didn't get the Hart or whatever. Who knows who'll get the Hart. But yeah, I think honestly, everything Edmonton does is pretty exciting just because they're also volatile. Like it's like they're kind of harkening back to the 80s Oilers, where it's like they're going to probably score 5 goals, but they might let in 6 or 0. So
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Skinner.
Exactly.
When does the voting happen? Does it happen before the playoffs? Because I feel like Hart should be it should be a shoe-in. My vote would go for Hellebuck. I feel like he's got it. His playoff performance has historically been subpar, and this year was no different. But just the regular season he put together, Hellebuck, to me, that's you're winning the Western Conference, and they got the President's Trophy too, I think, if memory serves.
Yes.
But the first time they've ever done that, and you almost got to give it to him, I think.
I would. I don't like giving it to goalies, but I would. I just found the dates.
Oh, good.
For
All right.
For the announcements.
Yeah, what do you got? So we just did the Selkie. I imagine Lady Bing's probably next if they're going like least exciting to most exciting.
No, as usual, I used Chat GPT, and it's totally wrong now that I look at it. It's got shit happening in April and August. So.
Oh, beautiful.
Bad bot.
Bad bot.
Chat
All right.
GPT,
so we'll move on while we train the AI here. Managerial changes, not going to do a ton for like surface value of teams. The Kraken get a new GM, Jason Botterill, formerly of, I think, Buffalo most recently. The Isles, they got Matthew Darsh, who I can't hear his name or see his name without thinking of that.
Darsh.
Yeah, thinking of that skiing episode of South Park. And you had to hear that he was the AGM of the Bolts. And Alan, your proximity to the Bolts, what do you got about this guy?
Yeah, this is there's some the sky is falling there with oh my gosh, Vinnick. There we go. As Vinnick's kind of withdrawing from ownership and this new group is taking, and it's like, is this the talent drain? Is this
was that the guy that was doing all the dumb stuff on Twitter, or was that he was a Panthers owner, right?
Yeah. Oh, Bill, was it Bill? Not Zito.
No, it wasn't Zito. It was like a part owner who was.
Yeah, I had that screenshot. That was a fun day. But no, yeah. This is there's some doomsayers that are like, is this where we start bleeding talent to kind of not be as competitive anymore? But we'll see. I
don't know.
If this was a guy who deserved it, why not take a job? Doug Sifu.
Doug
yes.
Sifu, you're right.
Doug Sifu.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the on ice product is untouched. So whether or not Matthew Darsh, like, I'm sure he had a say in what the on ice product looked like, but you still have the same core, right? So like, do you start bleeding? You're gonna have to start bleeding at some point, because you can't just like trade first round picks for Oliver Bjorkstrand for the rest of your life, and hope that you continue the Florida streak. But what I think is exciting is the Isles are making changes. So you don't have Lamoriello, which is huge, but Patrick Waugh is going to stay on, and we're going to see some Islanders players with beards, and I think a lot of it's going to be out of spite. Like, the guys are just going to straight up grow beards for fun. And where did Lammy go? Isn't he was like rumored in Buffalo, or did he get signed at Buffalo as like some sort of behind the scenes kind of guy, player development or whatever?
I hope not. Hope he's
Godfather.
Done.
I don't know.
Should just be done.
So. Yeah. But did you see like the first move that the new guy made? Sign Kyle Palmieri.
Yeah.
2
like
years.
The most Lamoriello move that you can make.
Yeah. To all of eternity, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I would like to see him
really
trade Bo Horvat to Vancouver, maybe.
I don't know. He doesn't.
I don't know if I could
imagine
imagine him in a Canucks jersey, though. It'd be weird.
He's got too much potential. It's just that's not a very a Vancouver thing. I think Vancouver is where talent goes to die, Raj. They're the new Islanders.
Well, Vancouver ego would not bring him back, right?
Oh yeah, you can't.
We
fuck
did
around
not
with
make the
Canada.
wrong decision.
Tons of other GM changes. The Kings got Ken Holland. Shanahan is out as the Leafs president. There's still a ton of like TBD stuff as far as coaching carousel goes. I think the Bruins are still TBD, even though Marco Sturm looks like he's leading the pack there. Penn's without a coach because Mike Sullivan is now the Rangers head coach. Because the Rangers just had the weirdest season, and we'll touch on this much later in the offseason, but this is the first season that the Rangers, the Bruins, the Red Wings, and one other original 6 team, the other American original 6 team, Blackhawks, all missed the playoffs. Like the only teams that made the playoffs from the original 6 Canadian teams, Habs, Toronto. So first year in history.
They're not really Canadian either.
Which is kind of wild. Like, Raj, since you've joined the show, I think 5 years ago or whatever it is, we've been just shit talking Boston. That since Bergeron and Krejci left, this is the year they suck. This is the year they suck. This is the year they suck. And you know what did it? They got some players from the Vancouver Canucks, and then they just polluted the whole system in Boston. So that's what did it.
That's true. Canucks. They were Flames. They were both Flames.
Who's Zadorov and Lindholm? I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, we just borrowed them. And you know what? I miss Zadorov. I liked him.
How can you explain off Jacob Markstrom then, who had a great year in New Jersey? Was that reverse? If it's Vancouver to Flames, then you're good. But
yes,
if it's Flames to Vancouver. Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
See, you're a coding guy. You know all the
it's the logic, right? Hawks get Jay Blashill. Flyers get Rick Tocchet. So we'll talk about that later on, man. Not this episode or anything, but I'd love to know more about Tocchet, his system, etc. The Rags get Sully, like we said. The most controversial one is going to be Joel Quenneville with the Anaheim Ducks. Yeah, my thoughts exactly there, Al. All right, and one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, because we were talking about this with I was talking with Purple Puddin in the Discord. We like Jackson Lacombe, right? Like he was the QB1 this year under Cronin, but you have Lacombe, Zellweger, and Mintyukov, all who are viable QB1s on the top power play. But now you introduce a new coach, and you have like these 3, power play 1, I guess, like, again, viable players. Where's the confidence level on any of these guys? Like, I think what I said in the Discord was I'm not drafting any of them unless my drafts are like into the preseason where I can see or start to see a pattern. If somebody's holding the top power play, if it's one of those guys, like, do we just kind of like throw a dart at one, maybe Lacombe, since he's the recency bias higher? And I don't know, Alan, where are you at with these 3 guys, man?
I wouldn't touch any of them unless one of them gets a streak of like 20 games or something.
Yeah.
Why would you take someone from Anaheim?
Right, they're not ready to compete. I don't know what
that's the thing. It's like
was about.
I'll come up to one of my rules later, but it directly applies right there.
I think there's a lot of like there's some Montreal that could happen there. You got a lot of young guys and a lot of untapped potential, and I think what they're doing is they're hoping that Quenneville can tap that potential. And
isn't that what got him in trouble the first time?
Stop. But all right, so fuck. Train has been derailed. I don't know. I think Anaheim is like a few years out from like really competing. Yes, you have guys like Leo Carlson who, again, untapped potential, but it's going to take a little bit for all of these players to really hit their stride. We're talking Dostal, we're talking, Carlson, Gauthier, Zegras needs to kind of get back to form. A lot of these young players need to get to their stride, and I don't think it's going to happen year 1 under Quenneville. So I don't know. When it comes to these QB1s, that seems like a waiver wire kind of steal to me. And again, still crazy early to be talking about pickups and draft, but I thought it was an interesting kind of avenue to check out.
It is. There's no way in hell I'm investing in any kind of fantasy on where a team where the leading point scorer at 55 points.
Was it Frankie
There's
V?
no one on that team that's worth investing in. If that's the top scorer, and you're talking about prospect D on that team,
Yeah,
like there's nowhere to go.
it's a lot of coin flips, a lot of gambling to be happening there.
It's not like you're gambling on Bouchard, who's playing with actual players or something. It's like you're banking on Sammy on V or some, I don't know, Troy Terry or like.
No, Circler's right here in the chat. Like Gudis Bang Daddy, that floor is pretty fucking safe.
Oh man, Truba does he
Truba
still have
too.
time on that contract?
I think so. I mean that's a safe team for Banks. I think some surprises with this year. Like I thought the Washington Capitals kind of as a whole, whether or not you like start to look into the advanced stats, yeah, they were on a PDO bender and they got lucky a lot. Montreal kind of the same way, but the goalies in particular with the Capitals, not a ton of, I mean, there's fantasy value with Logan Thompson, but getting 45 games out of Thompson or getting 60 out of somebody else, you're kind of treading water on either one. But like as a team, minus the fantasy, Washington Capitals really, really surprised me this year. It's not that I thought they would miss the playoffs or anything like that, but to do as well as they did, huge year. I think big breakouts from like Alexei Protas, Connor McMichael, a lot of the young guys stepped up, and it seems like they're filling the spots. Like Backstrom's gone, right? TJ Oshie's gone. PLD did pretty well this year, so
I was gonna say, is Spencer Carberry the PLD whisperer? Like,
yeah,
what
to
happened to him?
That was, I mean, I'd love for him to get Coach of the Year.
100%.
Yeah.
I still think if Columbus had made the playoffs, Dean Evanson.
Oh my God. Columbus is a whole other story. And like, I'd love to get derailed here, but like if they had goaltending, they would be a playoff team. Like they are they were top 10, I think it was, in offense generation, and Merzlikins, Jack Reeves, and why did I want to say Jet Wu and Daniil Tarasov? Like they shit the bed consistently, diarrhea and napped and bad stuff. Nashville kept Andrew Burnett for all of the coaching changes this year. Like the absolute stinker that Nashville laid this year. Burnett keeps his job, and they attributed a lot of it to broader roster issues rather than coaching. And this reminds me a lot of, I want to say it was like 4 years ago, where New Jersey brought in like Wayne Simmons and this guy, that guy. They had so many changes, and you were like, oh my God, like this roster looks good. But it was like, you ever like cook vegetables in boiling water and then you got to blanch them and then you got to shock them with ice? I feel like that's what happened.
Who's done that? Who has done that besides you?
I know, I was right. Like, who's the cook on the show? Definitely not me.
So that's what I'm thinking. It was like a shock, right? So there was too much change. Yes, you got Marchessault, you got Stamkos, and there was so much change, and it's just like
not the right kind of change though. Like, what they didn't need a bunch of scoring wingers.
Yeah, they need centers. In my opinion, you can't have Tommy Novak in your top six, or I mean, they traded Philip Tomasino, which I have my feelings about, but I don't know. We'll see if like another full offseason can really make it work. And I don't know. Nashville was such a weird season. So, I mean, Capitals, good season. Nashville, way underperformed. But let's go into the Stanley Cup playoffs review. We talked about a lot of this kind of already, but the guys who are really standing out to you, Alan, we'll start with you, man. Like, who have been the guys have stood out in your mind?
Oh, Rantanen, like even with a new team getting dealt at the deadline like that, like I forget what the stat was at one point, but it was like of the so many goals that Dallas had scored up to that point, he was involved in every one but like 3. It was ridiculous.
He was involved in like 14 goals in a row.
That's it was like 14 to 17 or something like that.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact he was playing against Colorado, and there's that chip on his shoulder. The stat that I saw, it was funny. I think it got shared to the Twitter channel and in the Discord, where it was like Rantanen literally had the choice of which team he wanted to lose in 5 games in the playoffs to, whether it was Dallas or it was Carolina. But I think he chose the better team. Like, obviously, I don't think he wanted to be in Carolina. Did really well in the playoffs. And it looks like you got a couple more here, man. Like,
yeah, Kyle freaking Connor, man. Like the Jets are out in the second round, but he is still top 10 in scoring, which is crazy.
insane.
Yeah, his points per game is I think 4th right now. 3rd.
Yeah, I have here Adrian Kempe leads the playoffs in points per game, which is kind of wild. Like, yes, he does have the small sample size out in the first round against Edmonton, but he looked really good. And it obviously helps to play against the Jekyll version of Stu Skinner. That's going to pad your stats a little bit too.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, like Philip Deneau was top 8 in points per game just because he was playing Skinner.
Yeah.
At that time. Like Phil Deneau is a fantastic third line.
He's a
if
selkie
he's got
guy.
Other
He's
wingers, right?
Yeah, he's not a scoring guy.
Shouldn't he be up there? He's ahead of Kyle Connor in points per game, and he's ahead of Mikko Rantanen in points per game.
The Stuart Skinner effect, baby.
Yeah.
Like you got here, Sam Bennett. He is a UFA this year, gonna get some money. I've heard, I don't know if it's him or Reinhardt or both that have been rumored. Toronto, obviously going to show up in some rumors and stuff like that. But
well, everyone's going to show up in Toronto for rumors. That's just
especially if they're going to have $13 million available because Marner is going to be in Vegas or wherever the fuck.
Yeah.
So
no, it was Bennett's been quite rumored to go to.
I don't know why, man.
Toronto,
He's a Band-Aid boy. Like when he plays, he's great.
He's gonna get so overpaid. I mark my words. Sam Bennett, Nikolai Ehlers are going to get the 2 most overpaid contracts since Elias Pettersson.
We're gonna see some more Milan Lucic contracts this offseason.
Yeah. Well, with the boost coming up to the cap, like GMs are gonna get super trigger happy. Everyone's going to try to take everyone off Florida, everyone who has a beard like Sam Bennett's, and expect that's going to get them through next year.
So what is this that Ketamine is talking about? Nietzsche wants out of Florida.
I have not heard that.
So from Satyar Shah on Twitter, Martin Nietzsche makes the list. I assume there's a list. After the Avalanche moved Rantanen because of how difficult they perceive contract extension talks to be going, how much patience will they have with Nietzsche? Not a homegrown player or a superstar talent. If negotiations on an extension start slowly this July, that was a question. Inflection fucked up. But there was a sense that Nietzsche wasn't overly thrilled with his experience in Colorado and that he wants to explore other options. That, I don't know. That seems pretty gray. Maybe there's something to it, but first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, I know.
Vancouver.
It's just one of those like, who cares? It's Martin Nietzsche. Like
I have him later on for my ADP shifts positive because I thought he was pretty good. You know, a lot of it was Carolina. He added those stats in Carolina. Utah Mammoth. What do we think about the name, boys?
I liked the Yeti. My wife liked Hockey Club.
I liked Hockey Club.
Mammoth is different enough. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I had Hockey Club. I was like, stay with Hockey Club. It was cool.
And then Yeti was different from everything else.
And then Yeti was my second pick. Mammoth is fine, but it's just
stupid.
It sounds like a WHL team or something.
Yeah, the logo is pretty cool. I like what they did with the hid the shape of Utah in there. Real tough.
You mean, did they hide that under the 5-hole colors, or where is that where they hid that?
I don't know. All right, so let's dig into the Toronto stuff that people want to hear about Toronto. What do we think happens with Marner? So I'll start it off here. I'll set the table. I think Tavares re-signs. It's going to be a team-friendly-ish deal. He'll probably get 6, 7, 8, something expensive enough so he's still comfy, but also single digit so they can sell it as team friendly or whatever. They make a play for Marner. He probably walks. My guess as of right now, just to put it on record, I think Marner winds up in San Jose. I think they've got a ton of money. There's Patrick Marleau connection there. He'll win just as many cups as he would in Toronto with San Jose. So it's
Oh,
just like a Celebrini thing. So he could play with Celebrini, and I don't know. The guys are talking about Toffoli on the wing, or I'd love to see Will Smith up there somehow. But that's my guess, and I want to put it on record. So hopefully I can say I was right later on. I think it'd be a ton of fun. Big fish, small pond. What do you guys think happens, Raj? What do you think happens with Marner here?
I never thought San Jose, but that is exciting to me. Like to see Marner with Celebrini. Celebrini is like my favorite player in the world right now.
Yeah, he's kicking
Like,
ass. He's cool.
He's like Connor Bedard who smiles. Like it's like he's an incredibly talented, amazing kid from North Van, except it's not like he's fun. Like he's having a good time. It's
Is
like
he
if
from
Trevor
North Van
Zegras
too?
was good. Yeah, he lives like they live blocks apart from each other.
Oh shit.
It's really weird. But it's like, yeah, it's like if Trevor Zegras was a good hockey player, he might be him. Like he's uber talented, and it's just so fun. You see him playing in the Worlds with Crosby, and like they're like, yeah,
Taking notes.
You can hang on Crosby's line, setting each other up for sweet goals. And so now, and Bedard had turned that down, just so you know.
And I gotta say, he
So
surprised me. Like, I thought he'd.
Yeah.
I knew he was gonna be good, right? But I didn't know he was gonna be like superstar good. I kind of thought this had, that draft class. Maybe it was overshadowed by the Bedard bit, but just the draft class prior. But
dude, if you put Marner there,
it was gonna be like that. Yeah,
it's
money.
Like Marner, to me, I to many people's chagrin out here, I've always said I want to see Quinn Hughes and Mitch Marner just skate on a line together once.
So those Marner signing in Jersey?
Yes, exactly. They're going to trade Jack Hughes for Mitch Marner and then bring Quinn in. But who taught Mitch Marner how to skate in Toronto?
Mr. Marner?
Daddy Hughes.
Oh.
He was Toronto's skills coach for a year. And like they've all actually been in dressing rooms together and all that kind of stuff when they were kids. So I've always wanted that, just because they're just short, little, funny haired guys who skate in circles really beautifully. But no, I think Marner is either gonna stay in Toronto or go somewhere sunny, like
San Jose,
Florida.
Baby. Nah.
I'll seeing what LA did. Maybe he'll go to LA. Like,
yeah, LA's been up there in the rumor mill. Vegas is up there. Columbus, I don't know if there's like any.
They got the money.
Yeah,
he's not going to Columbus.
He's not, but they have the money, dog.
Not go to Columbus.
No, you take one look at the goalie situation, you just can't. You can't do it.
No, just look at the attitude situation. He is not a Columbus, Ohio kind of person. He's a Los Angeles, Florida. Have you seen the shoes the guy shows up in?
Whittle it down. I've got San Jose. Raj, where's your money?
I want to say LA.
All right. Alan,
LA
where do you land on this?
I still Chicago for some reason sticks with me, but now you say San Jose. That'd be really good. But does he fit their window?
No, but the argument that I made, because this conversation came up in that conversation in the Discord, that it's somebody like Marner coming in is kind of like
a reason to compete.
It's a signal flare to the rest of the league. So you got UFAs that are like, okay, San Jose's ready. San Jose's serious. They got rid of Georgiev. We can actually win some games now. So you bring in some other sorts of folks, right? So I don't know if Askarov is going to be the number one going forward. I don't know. Like that to me, like maybe they can build on top of it. Maybe they can get some D. I'm pretty sure Vlasic's contract ends this season or coming up pretty soon. So if Marner goes there, I think it shifts the window. Like I don't think him coming in, I think if he goes there, he dictates the window in a way. You know what I mean? Like it's a very young team, but I think the same thing could be said with Chicago. LA is more of a win now thing, but also I think see, I'm not an LA guy, and I know caffeine and ketamine in the chat is, so I don't know if he fits their system really well. Like we've seen what happens when Fiala's and offensive guys kind of go in. So I don't know.
I don't know, man. Kempe and Marner.
Oh God, getting me going. All right,
Sick, dude.
Alan, do you have a team? Like, where do you kind of land? Does Marner stay? Does he go somewhere
No,
else?
if Marner stays, someone else goes. There's no way they run it back with that same core four again. It's
Shanahan.
insanity. It's insanity.
You know they're ready for a change because Shanahan got the axe. So
Yeah.
it feels like there is going to be some sort of shift. The Shanahan plan is done. So I don't know. Do you have a team? Is there somewhere you want to play?
No, like I said, like Chicago always kind of made the most sense to me.
All right. There we are. Ottawa made the playoffs. Some other storylines. I think Montreal, more notably, like that youth movement. This is a team that is 2-3 years ahead of Anaheim, in my opinion. And things just kind of like hit their groove. Like Montembeault found his game, and I think Demidov coming in gave him a little extra juice at the end. But this is a team like Montreal is going to be a fucking powerhouse in 4 or 5 years. So they got a couple things to figure out. I think Lane Hudson stirred that drink pretty well.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Carolina fell short again. Pete DeBoer is on the hot seat. Do you think Rod Brindamore is starting to feel a little fire at all? Like, this is a system where they give 120% every single game of 82 games just so that they come ahead in the Corsi battle and stuff like that. Are they able to add another 16 games on top of those 82, 16 wins to is Rod Brindamore the guy that's going to get him there? I don't think the candidate who can actually push him over the edges is on the market right now. So Brindamore might be the best option they have. But is there anything you guys got on Carolina? What do you think?
I feel like part of the reason they made it that far is the division they were in. I mean, the Rangers take a dive. Pens didn't make it. Islanders were circling the drain. Like, who else from that division was really going to stand up?
It for a long time, like I remember, going back 6-7 years, there would always be 5 teams from the Metro, 3 from the Atlantic. It seems like that's kind of switched. Like Jersey made it, they flopped, and Washington had their
lost
run.
Hughes at the worst possible. Yeah. Well, Jack Hughes at the worst possible time.
Yeah,
that's all the Hugheses go down the worst possible. I don't like it's the similar thing to why I think you don't want to hear this, but like guys like Rick Tocchet, Brindamore, like they're maxed out at like second, third round of the playoffs. Like it's kind of like the old Islanders theory. It's like we're gonna get in, and there's this almost like a Scheifele like window where you're like you're gonna get to this area. You're never gonna surpass that when you're franchise players at 74 points, right? Like Svechnikov, who is the next Ovechkin. Yeah, he's got 48 points in 72 games. Like
he needs another coach. He needs another coach. I'll say that for Svech. Like,
yeah, but I mean, everyone's so excited about Seth Jarvis again, like 67 points. Like Aho, 74 points. Like, what do you cannot go far like that. Like, you can kind of get there if everyone's super consistent, but you don't see teams win unless they have actual game breakers, and they don't.
All right, Fleury retires. That's it for storyline. So pour one out for the Flower. What a career! And now he's playing in the Worlds and stuff. He's still going out there and doing stuff.
Yeah, he's still out there losing to Denmark.
Oh, that was such an upset. All right, so early ADP shift. So we'll talk about a little hindsight bias here and hindsight analysis. We want to talk about guys looking back at the season and saying, why didn't we see that? What did we miss? Nietzsche's, man. He's my guy for positive ADP change. And a lot of that happens with Carolina and the tear he was on before Christmas. Slowed down a little bit and then got the boot over to Colorado, which apparently he wants out of now, which I'm finding out. I don't know. How can you play with McKinnon and be pissed off about it? I just don't.
You just
don't
don't
get
like soybeans? I don't know.
Fair enough. Doesn't have a taste for avocado.
Yeah.
I don't get a good vibe, like a fun vibe from him and Makar. Like, I think they're
All
like,
business. Yeah.
are you not as good as me, and why not? Like, be as good as me, and that kind of
Is
gives
that
the
easy?
vibe I get.
But
Yeah.
how does
He's got-
Druin get these contracts with them year after year?
I don't know. They
Fuck, man.
like, yeah, it's like Gretzky as a coach. It's just like, I don't understand why you're not the best. I just don't get it. You know, like,
So today we're gonna work on being the best, and we're gonna do suicides until you get it. Bag skate, boys. All right, 92-point pace for Nietzsche in Carolina, 77-point pace in Colorado. A lot more time on ice, a lot better players to play with in Colorado. I think maybe just culture shock getting into it. And again, that like wildly unsustainable run that he was on to start the season really petted those numbers in Carolina. I think we get it if he stays in Colorado. We're talking point per game kind of player here. Top line, top power play. Love it. 140 ADP last year. No shot he's triple digits going into next year. This looks like a top 5 round type of pick for me. So put him right up there with like the Trocheks and the Timo Myers. I think he's going to fit right in with those guys. His ADP is not safe in the triple digits. He is my positive ADP change. I love the one you have here, Alan, man. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as you
Well,
said it, was like,
I should
fuck,
probably do the parlay. Like,
yeah,
while I'm
run
at
them
it.
both.
Yeah, positive ADP. So I think Thomas Harley, no brainer. In the 5-hole leagues, at least, he's drafted around 141. Then on the flip side, Heiskanen was drafted in like late 50s. I kind of think they swap places next season. And we'll see what actually happens. I know that Heiskanen was kind of getting up to game speed come that Western Conference Finals, but for game 1, they did defer to Harley on that power play 1. What is it? And then in the season after Heiskanen went down, Harley's power play points ticked up to almost half of his total points, which whatever, that's good, that's bad, whatever. Maybe that just meant he converted more, helped them convert more on the power play. Except maybe not really, because and of course ChatGPT could have been a bad bot again, because I asked them what their conversion rates were per quarter, and they never were really great on the power play, regardless of who was there. So maybe another reason to give DeBoer the boot.
I'm right there with you, and I think this gets more interesting the hotter that Pete DeBoer's seat gets. You know, if somebody new comes, I love the way Pete DeBoer, from like a hockey perspective, fantasy hockey, he's frustrating as hell, because what he did with the Dallas Stars is like what the Islanders try to do. And I think Dallas has the system that the Islanders want to emulate. Like, they've just done it right. They roll lines, they play tight defensively, low event hockey. It's just they have more firepower. They've got Rupe Hintz, they've got a Wyatt Johnston, a Jason Robertson, whereas on the other side you have Bo Horvat and Anthony Duclair. When it's not going to work. So if Pete DeBoer comes back, I think Harley is probably your QB1. Safe to say he probably winds up in the 50s and takes that Heiskanen spot. Right there with you, man. Raj, who's your positive guy?
Well, I gotta steal one off the list here. There's a guy just like it has kind of come up already. It's on our list of just jackets, but I'm really high
Skaters.
on
They're
Fantilli.
skaters. Goalies are still no.
Clarify, thank you. I'm super high on Fantilli. I really like him. I think he's like he was fine this year, and he was good. They had no reason to be good. Like, they were such on paper.
Yeah.
It was just like everyone wanted them to do well. Like, it was feel good stories all around because of the BS they got handed, obviously. And then they just fucking were good. Like, they were often offensively really kick-ass. And I, ever since he was a junior, I've just liked Fantilli, and I think he's a guy who I don't know if everyone's going to jump on the Jackets bandwagon. Like, he's not a guy I would want to take like super high or anything, but I think he's projected here went 181.
Yeah, it was like
He's
higher than 181 for sure.
Oh, for sure.
He's much, much, much better than that, I think.
Dude, you go down the list with the Jackets. Circular here in the chat is talking about Kent Johnson, and
yeah,
Caffeine is talking. I'm silly for Fantilli. Like Werenski, Fantilli, Jenner, Monahan, Marchenko, even Chinnikov at periods. Like there was so much value on the Blue Jackets because everybody outperformed their ADP. Werenski largely just because he stayed healthy for an entire season. And I think I was joking around with Chud in the chat. Werenski only plays a full season when his ADP is above 100. And we'll see what happens with him this year. Like, I know he's going to be somebody that if he gets hurt, it's an automatic to overdraft. So if he doesn't get hurt, then you're probably getting value because I don't think there's going to be a market for Werenski as a steal next year. I don't think there's going to be a market for any of these guys as a steal next year just because they've been exposed to a certain degree. Like these are household names now, which is wild. Every time my TikTok algorithm is like hockey and just people falling off bikes. And that fucking video comes up where they're playing the Panthers and they leave the puck in Johnny's spot for 13 seconds. That's one of like 3 things in the world that can make me cry is that fucking video. And I was watching it the other day. It came up less than a week ago. I'm watching that and I'm just like blubbering.
Yeah.
Man, what a fucking video that was. What a, just a moment. Everybody, man. Anyway, tons of names on this list. Lane Hudson, no shot. He goes at 200 ADP next year. No shot. Seth Jones, Alan, I'm taking it. You put this guy down.
Yeah, so Ekblad is a UFA after the season.
Yeah, that was going to be my lead.
And it was just like as soon as Ekblad got suspended, they put Seth Jones in there, and he actually started doing stuff. Like Ekblad was there so much of the season, did nothing with it. They couldn't really get any of the defense, and I just thought
like
maybe
10 of them.
Yeah,
maybe
it's just not a power play that really utilizes that defenseman, but Seth Jones, wow. Yeah, there we go. So I don't know, 111, and depending on your scoring, I could see that earlier than 100, especially if you have bangs.
Yeah, I think Jones definitely solidified his play. He's not much of like a defensive D. Doesn't really have like those metrics behind him. So if he's not on a power play, he's not earning his contract. So I think I'm with you. I don't know if Ekblad comes back, especially if they bring home a second Stanley Cup, like kind of run it back, figure it out.
Well, I mean, if he signs somewhere, it's a friendly deal after his suspension fiasco.
And I mean, performance, whether or not it was deployment related, like he has not been. I think there was like 1 year where he was given actual power play one time, and that was the 1 year he was great. And I think that was the same year. Was it the same year Trocheck went off?
It probably went off in the power play. Probably.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a minute. I wonder where he goes. That'll be a fun one. The UFA class. I mean, that's an episode on its own for this year. It's going to be a good one right around July. Josh Norris here. Like you said, Band-Aid boy, but Buffalo, that's going to be a whole new scenario for him. I like that there.
I don't think anybody's going to draft him is the thing. I think he'll be like last year, nobody was drafting him.
200 ADP in 5-hole leagues, which is kind of nuts.
I think he'll be able to get him super late again. And I think he's the kind of guy you could get, in the 150 post range, and he's potential. Like he's got 30 goals. He's a 30 goal pace guy.
Just need that shoulder to hold up, right?
Just when he plays. So that's the
chat is absolutely going off on Ekblad.
But I feel like that's how just starved the center market is, that even though Norris has this injury history, Buffalo still traded for him.
And they traded away Dylan, a center for him too. So I don't know. I guess they saw it as an upgrade. Maybe they were just over Dylan Cousins as an experiment or whatever. But Nashville, pick up your phone.
Yeah.
All right, negative ADP change. I got like maybe the biggest layup here with Elias Pettersson. Drafted inside the top 20 in 5-hole leagues last year, 17.5. I have no idea. Like Raj, we talked about this a little at the top of the show. I don't know what happened with him. Like folks say it's the JT Miller effect. Like they didn't get along, things like that. But
yeah,
Pedersen's point pace was better when JT Miller was on the team. A 60-point pace with JT Miller. He got traded on February 1st, 2025.
well, yeah,
and his point pace went down.
it's because Miller's really good. That's why.
Well, yeah, but like they at a point they were splitting them up even on the power play. They couldn't even be on
that
the
was
same
only
fucking
like
power play together.
that was only a couple of games. That's the shit that like shows like ours were talking about. They only did that for a bit, and that's why everyone was like, if it's actually that bad that you're splitting
you got
grown men up on a power, you have 200-point players in the last since Henrik Sedin.
And now you have
You're like, and you can't even play them
50-point player.
together. And like now they didn't total 100 this year. Problem. No, I think that's one though where I think like his ADP is going to go way down, so you might actually be able to get him at a value. You might be able to get him at like 80, and then he gets you 75, 80 points. He's a great all-around player too.
That this reminds me a lot of when Huberdeau went to Calgary, cratered, and then his ADP shot way down. Like it tanked. And what I see differently is like Huberdeau was never really set up to succeed in Calgary, but what Pedersen has going for him is that like this is the same team for him largely, without JT Miller. So he knows the system, he knows the players, he knows this, he knows that. So he can still hit that like point per game range, whereas Huberdeau lost everybody he knew, and now he's playing with like fucking Mikael Backlund. I don't know. So to me, it reminded me a little bit of the Huberdeau situation. I could see that level of drop for him going into next year. Huberdeau's ADP, before he cratered was in like the 3rd round, and then he went into the 10th round. So that sort of drop, I know you're saying like 80. I could see Pedersen probably being in that range, 6, 7, 8, 9 round range, just based on a lot of people getting jaded over this year. He has been, since signing his contract, March 3rd, 2024, Pedersen has 59 points in 80 games.
And you know what was
that's not good.
Before that, he was point per game for his first 400 games. So it wasn't like he just had the one good season, like 400 games of point per game hockey on a bullshit hockey team, right? Like bullshit hockey team. And he was the second line center. So he's going to have a couple chances, but
who's your guy, Raj? We talked about Heiskanen for Allen's parlay on Dallas. What do you got in terms of negative ADP shifts?
Well, I mean, if we're talking in like just strictly ADP, who's going to drop? I think everyone on the Canucks and JT Miller are all going to drop. JT Miller was a top round player last year. He was into the 1st round, started the 2nd round. And I guarantee you he's probably more in the 3rd or 4th round this year.
I think it's TBD, depending on what the Rangers do.
Yeah, Sully.
Well, I mean,
that's a new look, man.
And that's, I don't know. He didn't improve when he got to the Rangers. So he's a guy that, and that's what I mean. Like he's just one where he could go very late depending on the league you're in. Like if you're in a league with a bunch of Vancouver guys, JT Miller's going to go super late. If you have a bunch of guys from New York in your league, JT Miller's probably going to go super high. So I think he's one of those kind of guys. But I mean, everyone besides Quinn Hughes on Vancouver is going to go way later. So I can just say that as a global move. I'm very, very curious to see if it's again TBD on where he goes. But if Marner gets traded, say he goes to Utah, right? Like say Marner goes to Utah,
what happens there?
I still think he's a 90-point player in Utah, and I think everyone else is going to think he's going to just drop off the face of the earth without Austin Matthews. But if you look at his stats, when Matthews was out of the lineup, he's still there. He's still way beyond a point per game.
There's such a huge trickle down effect with Marner too, because Do they move Nylander up to the top line with Matthews? And
Yeah.
man, that's going to be a whole fucking.
Yeah. But I think like if Marner gets traded to a shitty team, his ADP is going to drop way down, and I don't think it should.
He'll wind up being a steal. Give me that San Jose, baby. All right, Preds made the list here. Like, depending on what they do, how they restructure themselves, like everybody that we drafted on the Predators, like Yossi is a top 3 defenseman most times in ADP. Stamkos inside the top 3 rounds. Soros inside the top 5 rounds. 4 rounds even. And Alan, you got some interesting stuff about Marshall.
Yeah, no, I just think would he get drafted around 80? Yeah.
Yep.
I just think depending on it, like I think someone in the chat said it, he's rumored to be on the move to the Habs. I'd say in a different environment, that 80, that is still not bad value for him, depending on deployment.
Yeah.
I want what you just said.
Reclamation.
I want him on the Habs.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that roster is going to get very heavy very quick. Like if you get Demidov now for a full season, and holy shit.
I didn't mention it when we were talking about the Habs earlier, but I think I'm more excited about the Habs and the Sharks than any other teams in the league this year. Just for pure like excitement. Like I want to see those teams play next year.
If the Blue Jackets do something about their goalie, like they're right up there with me. Like I think you're right. The Sharks, the Habs, like Anaheim feels controversial just because of Q. So like I'm not a big fan of rooting for them, and I'm still salty about Cutter Gauthier, and I'm still salty from 10 years ago about Ryan Kessler. So I don't think that's a team I ever can really like. But yeah, like they're on the up and up. So we'll see what happens there. Some honorable mentions like Noah Dobson. What a fucking dumpster fire of a season he had. Chris Kreider. Again, we have Sully, so we'll see what happens there. I think Sully's going to top load the roster. He did it with the Pens. I think that's going to be his kind of MO. So we'll see JT Miller probably as your first line center, Panarin on his wing, Zibby as second line. We'll see what he does with Trocheck. God forbid he's the third line center, but yeah. Some breakouts that we could talk about later in the offseason. Alexei Protas, Jake Sanderson is a big one. Jackson Lacombe, Kirill Marchenko, everybody on the Blue Jackets who we didn't hear from prior to this season. But we got to get into the 10 lessons. We're gonna blow through this. I promised Alan we weren't gonna go 2 hours, and I have to stay.
Hey, if we do, hey,
I
haven't seen you in a while, man.
It's like I said, it's the first day of school for like the next 2 months.
I know. I forgot my.
If we take 2 hours, yeah.
But I do need to be awake at 3 a.m. so I can go to fucking Miami. So I'm incentivized also for this not to be 2 hours long. All right, so we got some fan lessons. Our boy Caffeine and Ketamine here on Discord. Sunk cost fallacy is a bitch, and that's right. We talked about Elias Pettersson, Huberdeau from a couple years ago. UC Saros sunk a lot of people this year, and it's just hard. Like when your first round picks they flop. Kirill Kaprizov getting hurt, Jack Hughes getting hurt. That's not something that you can really predict or plan for. For me, Matthew Tkachuk got hurt in the last like 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and I went on a 5-week losing spree. Not all because of Matthew Tkachuk, but I also had Joel Eriksson-Ek, Roman Josi get hurt, and it was just snowballed. So what are you going to do there? Where are you at with this sunk cost fallacy? I always like, there's another Alan in the Discord who said, if there's a move that you can make to make your team better and you don't do it because you're sad, then you have bigger problems. So if Elias Pettersson is dragging you down, or a goalie that you drafted high, this is going to be a big one that comes up. Like, oh, I can't drop this guy. I drafted him in the 3rd round. You can drop that guy, and if your team gets better, don't be sad about it. Like, just take the rear view mirror out of your car. So I don't know, like where are you guys at? It is always tough, and we have the gift of hindsight right now where we can look back on the season and be like, yep, we should have dropped Pettersson.
I was gonna say that almost plays into like one of the things I put. But yeah, man, it sucks, especially if it's a player you enjoy holding.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's what that's what IR spots and bench spots are for. Like, it depends on that hugely because it makes no sense. You cannot predict that 100-point player is going to get 45 points. It makes no sense. Did you drop Connor McDavid last year when he started that first month when he was like half point per game for a bit?
You traded him.
No.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
You traded him.
I did. I traded him for like Pedersen actually and somebody else. But I don't believe in McDavid as a first round pick. I don't believe in first round picks. First overall pick is not good. I did the math. But no, I don't think it's that is a tough one to say. Like, sunk cost fallacy in mid-range players, sure. But if you have like top end players, like it's easy to go, Pedersen got 45 points this year. What a dumb move to hang on to him. That was absolutely absurd that happened.
Yeah,
if you played that every
that.
time, if you played that move every time your top end player had a couple of bad weeks or whatever, like, don't play him. But I'm not dropping players like that. There's no fucking way I'm dropping players like that.
And no matter how long like the cold streak gets, it's but this is Elias Pettersson. He's going to turn it around. He has to turn it around.
And
you know what I mean?
But like, when you're saying Elias Pettersson, it sounds so obvious that was a bad move. But if you're saying
again with Connor McDavid when he was slow that first year,
most normal players,
and
most great players, and Huberdeau was another one. Like, you had to hang, like, for the first year at least, you had to hang on, like, because you can bench him. But yeah, I don't know. I agree. I agree with that rule, but I think that first round of player, you can't drop them.
You have to go safe. Yeah, with
if
your
you have someone in the first
pick,
round that you're gonna drop, that's not someone you should be considering in the first round.
Yeah, tried and true for the first few rounds, and then to me, like, if one of your rules or one of your lessons here, Raj, I think our consensus one too is like, it pretty much boils down to you don't win your league at the draft, right? So yes, your first few rounds, like, that builds your foundation, but I think you win your draft in the middle rounds. Guys that drafted Zach Werenski this year, guys that drafted, maybe you drafted Lane Hudson, but these steals is what takes you from, middle of the pack to top of the table. And those first few rounds, you really can't be risky with. Injuries are going to happen. Like, nobody saw that happening with Kaprizov or Jack Hughes. I guess you could have seen it with Jack Hughes, but Matthew Tkachuk, like, guys get, they get hurt and there's nothing you can do about it. This is one of my lessons. You have to have backup plans with your injuries because, if you're going to at least tread water, there's something you have to do as a backup plan. I want to get to Circular here. His lesson, if the smoke seems to be out of nowhere, there's probably fire. He owned Miller and Pettersson, who keeps coming up this episode. Should have listened about the rift between Pettersson. Traded early season when he strung together a couple good games. Miller never really had value until he got moved. And that's another thing. And it kind of ties into sunk cost value is when you hold on for long enough. Yeah, the value can kind of like come back for you. That happened with a lot of Jason Robertson fans. Like, that's a perfect devil's advocate for this because people that, could have dropped Jason Robertson in the first half of the season missed out on the second half that he had. And I think that's going to be a deterrent for people to drop somebody that you drafted high who's underperforming for a long time. So, I mean, there's arguments all around.
You just have to, with those really top end players, like, again, they just brought up Miller again. It's really easy to just keep bringing up Miller and Pettersson and say you should drop top 10 players as soon as they're not doing good. But
then you got the J-Robs, right?
You have like everyone else except Miller and Pettersson and Huberdeau. Like, those are the three examples you can bring up, but those are the three examples you can bring up. There's millions of other. Connor McDavid is 128th in scoring and it's a month into the season, and then he finishes the season in second or first. You know,
Yeah.
like that's usually what happens. And if you're playing the logic game at all, you have to play the logic game completely. You can't pretend like Elias
Can't half-ass.
Pettersson is a normal player this year. That's all.
Next year he'll be a steal, so that'll be good. I'll bring it into the first lesson that I got here, and it's gonna circle back to the injury bit. Injuries are gonna happen. Have those backup plans. It's not like something you can actively plan for, but you need to be able to be flexible on the waiver wire. I lost Matty Tkachuk, Roman Josi, Eriksson Ek, Matthias Ekholm, and it was during the last like handful of weeks in the playoffs. I lost 5 weeks in a row. And I missed on a lot of my replacement picks, which was brutal. I forget who I was picking up, but it was a lot of like spot starty guys that, I just treated those injuries like it was an extra streamer spot. And I don't know if like I would have been better off picking up somebody, holding them for the long term, because nobody was really doing that. Like Marco Rossi was my guy for a long time, but he kind of fell flat at the end. And like right around Christmas, Olmark went down for me. Dustin Wolf was good in the interim. I had him for a week, and then I played Moneyball with the rest of my roster. Vejmelka, Freddie Anderson, Vladar, Fleury between weeks 13 and 17, and it was barely worth the trouble. Like Olmark in his first week back got 25 points, and those 4 goalies, like Anderson got 13 points when I had him. Vejmelka 3, Fleury, like they had 3 more points over a 4-week span than Olmark put up in his first week back. So it was like I was trying to patchwork this goalie scenario, and I couldn't figure out, all these guys are guys that should be good stopgaps, like Freddie Anderson, Karel Vejmelka, Danny Vladar as a spot start. It just didn't work for the, those 3-4 weeks. So man, I don't know. That's my lesson there. What about you guys? What's your first lesson? We'll go to Alan.
Yeah. So mine is sometimes the best trade / move is the one you don't make. Sometimes, but not always. You gotta be careful with the sunk cost fallacy. But no, like I was talking about Jones earlier. Based on those rumors that he was getting traded at deadline, I'm like, well, shit. Like if he doesn't have that top power play, he's not getting anything. I need to move him while he still has it. I think he was involved in my trade for JT Miller, which cool. Yeah. Again, sometimes you're better off not making the move. But yeah, just watching him take off in Florida, it was like that Squidward meme where he's just watching Patrick and SpongeBob like running and having a blast.
All right. It looks like Raj left the chat, so I'll move on to another one. Exploiting scoring. So I was playing in the Fantasy Puck Content Creators League, and blocks were pretty juiced in that league. It was 1 point for a block and 6 points for a goal, so which is like a ratio that I'm not used to. Usually it's more like 8 to 10 blocks equal a goal, but blocks are pretty juiced. So I found myself picking up just boring fucking, Dylan DeMello, and getting some points out of those guys. So it might be boring, but if you just exploit your scoring, you play it the smart way, I guess. Run for that. If the peripherals you get such a better floor of than you do with the offense, like trying to throw a dart at somebody on the waiver wire who's gonna hit some offense is a lot less likely than going for the blocks, the hits, the shots, those guys that consistently do it overnight. So running a Dylan DeMello for a week pretty much got me like 3 goals a week, and it's not exciting. Like nobody's watching a game and just being, I'm sure you to a degree there's people out there, but nobody's getting super stoked over blocks. But it's not exciting, but it'll push you over the line.
Well, knowing your scoring is kind of the thing, right? I won a league with Adam Larson in a league like that before, where blocks were.
Oh yeah, that was that weird league. I remember that one.
Yeah, it was like Adam Larson and Chris Letang were like McDavid and Draisaitl of that league. But it makes sense. Like you should know where the points come from, and then try to get those. If you like goals, but the league values assists or blocks or something weird, like you just
Gotta play
got
your
to
league,
give it
yeah.
up and go get those things. Go get yourself a Tanev or whoever you got to get. But
All right, why don't you fire off a couple lessons here, Raj?
well, one that I've been trying to do. I did a shit job this year, as I did with most of my fantasy this year, but actively trying to seek out win-win trades is a big one, which does come down to just a piggyback of what we were just saying of knowing your league scoring. Sometimes you can make trades that, if you look at the goals and assists, that's what everyone looks at. Look at the goals and assists, look at the last 30 days on Yahoo, and then make all of your judgment based on that. But depending on your league scoring, sometimes you might, in the league that you were just talking about, maybe you trade DeMello for Steven Stamkos, right? And you look at that and go, what a kind of thing is that to do? But it actually might make more sense. So you can look for like just knowing your league scoring, but that can lead to win-win trades, especially in categories leagues, where if you see somebody who's crushing goals, but just absolutely getting pushed in on blocks, and you're the reverse, you can make a trade which 1-for-1 makes no sense, but in the context of a categories league on your team actually greatly improves both teams.
Yep.
So just being a little more active on that, and not just hand in hand with that is like, don't do those, look for those kind of trades, make them, and then mute the chat. Like, don't listen to what everybody says when they say, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? This doesn't make any sense. And don't get all defensive. But when you look at it, go, no, and this is my team. This is what I'm up against. This is the way our league works. You can't just look at the goals column or whatever all the time. So I'm trying to make a little more to look for those kind of value trades, because people do ignore their league scoring so much.
All right, send another one, man. I threw two out there, and then Alan, I'll do some catching up. We'll even it back out.
Okay.
One that
Well,
you
another one
here is the prospects one.
I'll piggyback off of that one again, but like one of my other rules was stats without context can be deadly, or basically like a little knowledge is dangerous, where like, again, you can look at one specific category that you like or you think is sexy, like hits. I love hits, but if your league doesn't value hits, it's not worth anything. Or like, it's not so much with the obvious stats like hits, shots, blocks, but it's when people start getting into the fancy stats. And, I mean, we all love the NHL edge and all of our advanced stats and expected goals, which every person makes up their own expected goals formula. So cool. Good stat there. But there's all these, like, I love that website or podcast name, Expected by Who. That's just the best name. But like, it's like stats without total context. It's like how everyone just all of a sudden one day decided plus minus wasn't worth anything when it used to be so important. It's like, you know what? It actually is super important as long as you put it in context of all of the other stats. Like, you can't look at Bobby Orr's plus 850 career plus minus or whatever and say that doesn't count for anything, because it does. It only happened because he was the best. But any given stat, especially advanced stats, I would say, the ones that don't count in your league, you can't argue with a guy who gets 50 goals because those counted in your league. But if you say, well, his expected goals wasn't that good, well, who fucking cares? Because nobody counts that.
My league
people counted the goals that happened. So
one of my favorite things that Matty K has said has been, if we're talking about shots per 60 or something, and you're talking about a first line guy, like, that doesn't mean anything, because that guy's not getting any more time on ice. So you're kind of maxed out. If we're talking about shots on goal per 60 from somebody who is at the top of their threshold for time on ice, like, what are you really hoping for? Are they gonna, yes, there's context that you can use to explain away. I remember Bjorkstrand went quiet for a while, and it was his shots that disappeared. So when you're trying to diagnose or investigate why somebody has either been underperforming or overperforming, you can use it, but it ceases to be predictive when you either are at the top of the time on ice table, or Andre Kasha from a few years ago, who only did well when he had 13 minutes time on ice, or Oliver Wahlstrom, who's now a journeyman throughout the NHL. Yes, your shots on goal per 60 are great, but as soon as you get above 15 minutes on time on ice, like, it just disappears. And those shots on goal per 60, if they're high when you have low time on ice, it means nothing without more time on ice until you start converting.
But that's context, and that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the context matters, but it's also like 13 minutes of Jake Virtanen time in the old days when you were a fourth line playing against the bullshit defense on the other team.
Yeah,
those 14 minutes are easy minutes.
A lot of
if you're getting 14 minutes and you're on the top line playing against good players, that's a different 14 minutes. So just context really, like, an actual context, full context really matters with stats.
Alan, I think we have the same lesson here, just worded differently, don't we?
Probably. So the way I said was, don't be afraid to move off those blue chips. Okay. We've been monkey dunking them on them all night, but Elias Pettersson, man, could you imagine if you had held on to him all season, whereas you could have flipped him for something useful? Or Huberdeau a few seasons ago.
Yeah.
Like, if someone would have been happy to take him off your hands for someone that was drafted in the second, third round still, like
Line A this season.
It's just something, I don't know. I had Pettersson and Heiskanen this season. It was just something in my gut wasn't.
You're just missing the Dobson Soros Infinity Stones.
Yeah. I had Soros, but in the list, but in the 5-hole listener league, he still had like one of the highest ranked goalies because he faced so many shots.
Yeah, we love volume. Yep. And I'm right there with you. Mine feels like it's the same. Like, know when to move on. Some examples from my own team were Malkin, Slafkovsky, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They went from OEL to Morgan Riley to a 5-forward power play in Toronto, and Malkin, was seduced by that center left wing bit, and he was good, but like, he was only great on weeks where I didn't need him to be great, where I already had like a 40-point lead or something like that, and it didn't really fit with my roster. Going back to what Raj was saying, like, I think to paraphrase what you say is like, know your team deficiencies, what you need and what you don't need, and an extra 40 points, in a week where I'm already up by 60, it doesn't matter. And Malcolm wasn't helping me on those tough weeks. Slafkovsky is another one that, was good, never great, but good and bad sometimes. And like, maybe I should have moved off him when he was bad. But yeah, I held on way too long, and again, Pettersson or Heiskanen, sometimes you do more damage holding on.
No, you don't. There's sometimes you do, but like 98% of the time you don't. There's a humongous difference moving on from Slafkovsky, who's a young guy who has promise, to a guy who has scored at a point per game for 400 games straight.
All right,
and
so
has broken 100 points.
To those like win-win trades, and I think maybe not a win-win had I been able to trade a Dobson or something like that. But if I felt that this wasn't going to work out for Dobson, and somebody else believed the opposite, that feels like a win-win at trade time. Like, you get rid of a Dobson and they think they're gaining a Dobson. And if you have that gut feeling, just follow your gut to that certain point.
Yeah. No, I'm just I think you have to go with your gut, because that's all you can do, because statistically it makes no sense to drop a 100-point player. It just doesn't.
It doesn't let me show the comment. I like Circular's comment there. Moving on doesn't equal drop, but you can also trade at a loss.
There you go. Yeah, I dig it. Yep. So like, just basically just punting them off your roster, whether it be to the waiver wire or to another manager. You got to make sure.
Yeah, it's just, I would just like to bring that. Like, so when do you do that though? And who do you do that with? Because like I said, like there's a
That's
big
what the gut's
difference
for.
between dropping Malkin and dropping Pedersen. Are
Oh,
two
for
very
sure.
different
And
things.
I think to kind of like put it in the same league, you use Robertson this year and Elias Pettersson, because those are two guys that I think have the same like ADP pedigree, but one worked out and one didn't. So, you're probably going to have guys that are listening right now that moved off of Robertson before Christmas. And you're going to have guys that moved off of Pettersson before Christmas. And one guy is happy they did it, and one guy kind of fucking hates himself because he did it. So it's just one of those things you live and you learn, and it's hockey. So it's not something we can pattern. Like there's no.
Well, I'm
way to
hating
really
myself
know.
because I didn't listen to Allen. I kept Pedersen all season, but I'm still saying and believing that that's the right move statistically over time.
Yeah.
Is like those guys don't use like that's the only reason we're talking about it is because it's an absolutely fucked up situation that is
Yeah.
not how
We'll see. We
or-
will see next season.
Yeah. And I mean, the worst case
try to
scenario
move him.
for
If
holding
anyone
on
wants
is
Pedersen, by the way, he's on the block.
the worst case scenario is they wind up on your bench, right? But you always have that ace in your sleeve if they do turn it into a Jason Robertson season. And so, I get the
trade him with
buyer's
Jayhawk.
remorse or whatever. Oh my God, you fucking Canucks fans. All right, Raj, this consensus rung true with all of us, but it was your idea. Who put pen to paper? So why don't you take away the FHF consensus to wrap this episode up?
Well, it's kind of the most logical one that we all forget, but I mean, the basic rule was to be active before, during, and after the draft, and that no single moment is the answer to the season, right? Like, so there's some people who put a ton of research into the draft and drafting the right team and put all this thought into that, and then you sometimes get super attached to that team because you put so much thought into it. And then there's some people that believe in you have to be trying to make trades all the time, and other people who are mostly about maximizing games played or whatever. But the truth of the matter is you just kind of got to pay attention the whole time, because if you draft shitty, it's tough to make that up. If you draft well and then don't participate after that, you're not going to probably do very well. So just like to be relatively active, like it'd be great to be put in all of your life into playing fantasy hockey, and then you'll probably do good. That's probably true. But realistically, like a bit of effort throughout the season is more important than like breaking your brain over one single moment, because it just doesn't work that way, in my opinion. So I think
I remember that.
Just be active.
That you remember that study I did versus like draft position versus activity during the year? It was like you have a 56-ish better swing if you're making more moves, if you're like maxing out your total moves every year. And in one of the leagues I was in this year, 1, 2, 3 in moves, finished 1, 2, 3, not in the same order, but like the same group of 3 were all in the top 3 this year. And let's see who made the least amount of moves. 1, 2, 3. They finished in the bottom 5. Yeah. So like the amount of moves that you're making, the amount of, just making sure your roster is full every single day. It's super important just to, be using your waiver wire pickups that's how you win. You don't win at the draft. It's something I believe, like you set a foundation. Yes, you can definitely lose at the draft, but you don't win your league at the draft. You win it every single week with your waiver wire pickups. That's what sets fantasy hockey apart. All right. Should I put a bow on it? Do the outro?
Let's do it.
Still got 30 minutes, Alan. Should we talk about something else?
No,
Alexi Protas.
we're good.
All right. So that is it for our first episode back from hiatus. That is the 10 lessons, the fantasy hockey debrief of the 24-25 season. We got that Keeper League mailbag coming up. So if you guys want us to, give our take on your keeper submissions, throw that to us in, Twitter, Discord, however you want to get in touch with us. We'd love to, hash out your Keeper League stuff on the air. We got the Dynasty series coming right behind it. You can find us on Twitter at FHF Hockey and the Fantasy Hockey Discord. I guess I should have, Rusty, but I could have had the outro music playing by now.
We should change the name of the podcast to Keeping Pedersen.
That's a hard no. All right, that's it from us, guys. That's episode 1 of the 25-26 season, or 24-25 off season, or whatever. So thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll catch you later on this week with the Keeper League mailbag. So get your submissions in. We love to talk about your shit later on. We love you.
Yeah. Night, everybody.
Love you.
Adios, turd nuggets.